We're finding out little dribs and drabs about why the FBI, why the DOJ felt like they needed to raid Mar-A-Lago in search of classified documents. And a lot of information has been provided, but over the last day or two, we've gotten some more, including that in the previous transfer of documents that had happened in multiple stages before the raid, people in the Trump orbit had given back 150 classified documents, which is already mind-blowing, absolutely insane that in those initial transfers of documents, that many classified documents would be transferred. That is by far more documents than Trump himself ever actually read while being president, but he felt like he had to have them. But in the end, when you add that to the documents that were acquired from Mar-A-Lago during the raid just a couple weeks ago, the government has recovered more than 300 documents with classified markings. There are many other documents, but these are the ones specifically classified as classified. And so, like, if you wanted to understand why they felt like they needed to do this, everybody's saying it's unprecedented. It's crazy that you do this. Well, to do something unprecedented, I don't know, maybe if you already had evidence that he had over 100 documents and you had reason to believe from the sources you had inside of Mar-A-Lago that there were more, then that might be why you would feel like we need to go in. And so they did. And when they went to Mar-A-Lago, like we've talked about the storage closet and stuff like that, apparently they also found White House records in the basement and in the closet in Donald Trump's office, which I love. Let's pause there for just a second because these documents are classified and thus, ostensibly important. And they're particularly important to Donald Trump. And we know that because he still had them at this point. So they were important enough to him that he took them from the White House, knowing that he wasn't supposed to. It was important enough that along multiple times when they transferred documents back to the National Archives or to the DOJ, he held on to these ones. So it's that important, but not important enough to not just put in the closet. Like, think about the documents of yours that you have in your closet. They're things that might matter to you in some way. I have some of my notes that I took as a kid in elementary school, a little bit of the really cringeworthy creative writing that I've done. And I wouldn't want to lose that stuff, but I'm not like checking it every day to go to all that trouble and then to just leave it in the basement. Yes, that just seems weird. Like, if this is that important to you, have it out on display, put it up on the wall.
Well, he was upset because they busted into his safe and he couldn't believe that they had the audacity to bust into his safe. But it's like what you were talking about. I mean, he had actually been subpoenaed for these documents several times. Like a few times they asked him for this stuff back. The National Archives said, hey, we're missing some things. Do you have them? Can we have them? They arranged for people to go pick them up and Donald Trump still held on to more. Then they asked for more of the stuff they were missing and he still held on to more, and now he's upset that the FBI had to come in and just take it for themselves.
Yeah, they were hot to get into the safe, but honestly, is there any reason to believe that what was in the safe was any worse than the stuff was in the basement? Who knows? It's this weird mix of really seeming to want this stuff, being willing to break the law to have it, but not seeming to really care about it once you have it.
I think he probably thought he was like untouchable. Like once it's at Mar-A-Lago, no one would dare come in there, and everyone who does come in is like one of his people. But now he's worried that somebody's wearing a wire and things like that. So he's very paranoid now, and I guess he has reason to be. So I guess I don't blame him.
Yeah, I think it was probably a safe bet that once he had it there, that nothing would happen. But I'm gonna say before we move on, because there is reason to believe that the stuff that they acquired was important. Like my knee-jerk reaction to the way he treated the documents implied to me that maybe it was stuff that was more personally important to him than stuff that was just really crucial and potentially damaging. Now I could be wrong, he's an insane person, but I would think that if it was, like core technological information about like nuclear defense or something, you'd put that in the safe, wouldn't you? Like, what is the stuff that you would just leave in the basement? That to me makes it seem more like it's personal communications and things like that. I mean, this is just a gut reaction.
You're giving him too much credit sometimes because it's like what you said, he's not a normal person. He doesn't think the way that most people think. So I don't know if he understands the gravity of the things that he had. I mean, obviously he kept them, so maybe he kind of does, but maybe it was more like a leverage thing. Maybe he was like, oh, I can use this for something else later. I don't think he was thinking of like, how dangerous it is to have these nuclear documents at your house on Mar-a-Lago, at your personal private property. I don't think he's thinking along those terms. I think he just thinks differently from most people, especially most people in those kind of positions. He's not normal, John. That's it.
Yeah, that's true. I'm trying to be fair, and that's probably a waste of time. Honestly, again, I would love to know, and maybe we'll find out more detailed information about exactly what was reacquired from Mar-a-Lago, because I'm gonna want to go through just for my own purposes. And try to figure out why he wanted each type of thing. Like I'm trying to think, like, if I had taken documents after being president, it would definitely be stuff about aliens and about like technology that corporations didn't want to get out, like the really interesting conspiratorial stuff. Like, what is he gonna do?
The actual conspiracy theories, yeah, and
the real ones,
the real things. And it's so funny to me because so many of these conspiracy theorists that we have, all the QAnon people, all the very, very MAGA Trump people, they have all these conspiracy theories that they're just making up, and it's like there's real stuff going on that I'm sure is way more interesting than whatever you're conjuring up. And what is that thing that they do with the numbers? Do you know what I'm talking about? The what?
Numerology, where you're figuring out secret meanings and numbers?
It starts with a G. I can't think of the word. Gemography, something, I don't know. But it's they're using the Michael Jackson song now. A, B, C, easy as 1, 2, 3 now. And they're like, oh, Michael Jackson, he's in on it. And Michael Jackson's not dead either. So that's
Catch a Butterfly is saying gematria.
Real interesting stuff happening at Mar-a-Lago.
Is gematria the thing that you're?
That's the one. Yeah, gematria. I kept wanting to say gemography, which just sounds like geography. That's not right.
That seems like a specific kind of numerology to me, but I'm not very familiar with it. Yeah. But anyway, perhaps, I don't know. Maybe they'll go through it in that respect. I'm gonna jump ahead to graphic 4 because I'm giving you my gut, thinking that this seems maybe like it's more personal, but apparently, just in the ones that he handed over back in January, the documents, they included documents from the CIA, the NSA, and the FBI, which again, I'm gonna waste a few seconds of your time to point out hypocrisy, even if that was the only thing that had happened. And then there was nothing left. There were no other documents. There was no rats. There was no need to go to Mar-a-Lago. Think about if it was Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton, and they had the documents from like multiple different intelligence agencies. Do you think a lot of right wingers would be on TV saying, well, instantly if they wanted to be declassified, it's probably declassified, it's that simple. They probably had a standing order. As soon as they pick it up and put it down, it's declassified if they want. Nobody would be saying that. But this is just one fact in a number of different facts that are already so damning. And that has not convinced any of these people to take it seriously. Now, there are a few other interesting details that have come about in the last couple of days, including from the New York Times recent reporting. One is that apparently Mr. Trump went through the boxes himself late last year. This is according to multiple people. This is before he turned over the documents that they gave in January, which I find to be fascinating. The idea of Trump like hunched over a bunch of boxes in the basement of Mar-a-Lago, like flipping through the papers, having no idea what any of the words mean. And that is interesting for a couple reasons. So one is that he went through it. Why did he go through it? Did he go through it to make sure that they were complying with the law? No, they kept apparently like 150 more documents that were classified. So it wasn't that. So what was it? It was clearly him filtering what he'll allow to go back and what he wouldn't allow to go back, which means that after that special Trump cull that had happened, then whatever they just got in this last raid was the stuff that was most personally important to him, that he especially wanted to have, which makes it even spicier. But again, the idea that he would be looking through the documents that he ignored throughout his entire presidency it just seems crazy. It seems crazy that he would go to all this trouble.
Didn't he notoriously just not read anything? Like he would just have people give him kind of bullet points about things. So yeah, the idea of him sitting, like that's like me whenever I'm going through my old stuff in the closet and so you're sitting on the floor, you're surrounded by all these papers and you're going through every single one of them. That's a ridiculous mental image for everyone, I'm sure. But yeah, and he doesn't read anything. So what does he know about what he's actually picking up and what actually matters and what actually doesn't, But I'm not gonna try to understand the method to the madness that we're dealing with.
Yeah, you want a bit more madness though? Here's the madness. So they turned over some documents. They turned over the 12 boxes of documents. Then there was suspicion that there were more. And so they went to Mar-a-Lago. They got a whole bunch more documents. And so that's the end of it, right? No, apparently not. The Justice Department investigation is continuing, and not just analysis of what they already have. Some officials are not certain whether they recovered all the presidential records that Mr. Trump took with him from the White House. And investigators have sought additional surveillance footage from the club to try to figure that out. And honestly, yeah, I would probably suspect that I hadn't gotten all of it either, because first glance, he could maybe keep stuff in the closet or in the basement, thinking, as you implied earlier, that they would never come to his home and take documents. That seems like a fairly safe bet for anyone to make. And he's very arrogant and also dumb. And so it's even easier for him to make that assumption. On the other hand, it's not like he doesn't have a bunch of other places to keep documents, potentially secret places inside of Mar-a-Lago or at the many other, pieces of property that he owns. So in theory, could he have sequestered some especially important documents somewhere else and then kept the ones that he did at Mar-a-Lago? Either, again, thinking that they'd probably be safe, but if they weren't, then once those are recovered, they'll think they got everything. I don't know, he clearly was trying to hold on to stuff. That's why he went through the documents. And so why would we assume that everything that was left would be left in Mar-a-Lago? Now, there's no evidence presented in this reporting about why the DOJ thinks this, or if they have good reason to believe the documents were put somewhere else, or that documents weren't copied before they were turned back over. I mean, let's bear in mind, it would be very easy to just have some interns or Eric or whatever copy all the documents before they send them back to the DOJ. I don't even know how you'd figure that out on surveillance footage, but I get why they seem to think that there could be a lot more to this.
Yeah, and it's like what you said, he's very dumb and he's very arrogant, and he relies very heavily on the people that he's decided to keep in his corner. And now, there's all these rumors and all these speculations that there's a rat somewhere in his midst, that there's a mole somewhere who's reporting all these things and cooperating with the DOJ right now. And also, we're dealing with the National Archive here. They know what they're supposed to have and what they're missing. They're record keepers, that's their job. So they know what they're missing and they know what they're looking for. They're looking for very specific documents that they need to get back.
Yeah, you're probably right. Documents that they consider theirs by law. Trump has a different way of looking at it. This is one of my favorite graphics in a while. So according to this reporting, 2 former White House officials who had been designated as among Mr. Trump's representatives with the National Archives received calls and tried to facilitate the documents return. So they were trying to do what they were supposed to do. Take the call, go to Trump, get the documents, send them back. Mr. Trump resisted those calls, describing the boxes of documents as mine, according to 3 advisors familiar with his comments. I mean, it's not like we need more evidence of him being a little baby, but mine, they're my documents.
I mean, you know what that is, John? It's narcissism, right? And it's like a very typical narcissistic trait where people think that once you have access to something or have gained access to something, it's yours now. You keep it. You don't let go of things that you think are yours. So you can have these national documents that belong to the people. They belong to the National Archive. And in his mind, no, that's mine. I did that, And it's not. That's not how the presidency works. Everyone knows that's not how the presidency works. That's not even how jobs work. If you get fired from a job, you don't get to keep the stuff. You don't get to keep the documents and just take them home with you. Everyone else knows that, but this is Donald Trump that we're dealing with. And so he thinks that they're his, they're mine. Yeah. It's very weird.
Right. Yeah, they're really not yours. No. Anyway, we can jump ahead to graphic 9, I think. Should we read the Trump? Let's read the Trump statement. I guess we should acknowledge his response to some of this, at least briefly. He truthed earlier this morning. The White House stated strongly that they were not involved and knew absolutely nothing about the political witch hunt going on with me, and that they didn't know anything at all about the break-in, which is capitalized and has a dash for some reason, of Mar-a-Lago. This was strongly reiterated again and again. Wrong. Remember, these are the people who spied on my campaign, denied it, and got caught. Through the great reporting of John Solomon, a fake Pulitzer Prize, documents reveal they knew everything, in fact led the charge, a political no-no. So that right there is a reference to John Solomon, this guy who just for years just spread just absolutely debunked conspiracy theories on places like The Hill and stuff like that, trying to distract from the Ukraine issues for Donald Trump with these made up things about uranium and everything. He released this letter that he believes, and Trump apparently believes, although in Trump's defense, he definitely didn't read the letter, shows that Biden did know about the raid on Mar-a-Lago. The letter, of course, does not show that at all. What the letter shows is that President Biden was asked something about some of these National Archives disputes and apparently said, you all handle it. I'm not getting involved. You all can figure out what you want to do. He did reject the supposed claims of executive privilege, which Donald Trump would apply to literally every communication he's ever had, even though that's not what it's for. And that's pretty much it. Now, the fact that the letter doesn't in any way show that Biden was involved or signed off on the raid or any of that, in fact, buttresses Biden's stance that he stayed out of it, will mean absolutely nothing to the right. They will believe what they are told to believe about this document. They will look into it even less than Donald Trump did. And so I have no doubt that by the end of today, every single Fox show is going to be saying Biden personally not just signed off on the raid, but he was in there. He put on an FBI vest and he was searching through boxes and going through Melania's clothes and stuff.
Yeah, with his aviator sunglasses on. It's a really nice visual. But it's funny because, I mean, obviously there's hypocrisy here that is not being addressed because, if it was anybody else, if it was anything that Trump has done, and which is what they're doing now, right? Trump is like heavily involved in all these things, but no, it wasn't directly tied to him. He wasn't directly involved in any of this. It doesn't matter. With Joe Biden, he's a president, so he's responsible for everything that goes on during his time as the president, whether or not he's directly involved in it. So it's two different stories for two different presidents, two different tales from two different opposite ends of the spectrum.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.